Hello, good afternoon, students. Welcome again to a new session at Educators Plus. I am Akarshi, your English faculty at Educators Plus. So before beginning the session, I want to wish you all a very happy new year. I think you have set your resolutions right for this year to get qualified as a JRF in these two upcoming exams of UGC NET. Okay, so this new year can't be any other special than this bumper two exams that are coming on your way. So I hope you are back from the vacations and are ready to on a study mode to study different theories and concepts of UGC NET English literature. Okay, so yes, students, I am here again with a new session based on the previous year's question. So in the coming time, I will be beginning my crash course on this YouTube channel on keeping in mind the UGC NET March exam. So I will be coming with the theory sessions as well, in which I'll be teaching you theory of the important ages or important literatures or literary theories, criticism, everything will be teaching in that theory sessions. So please stay tuned to these sessions because these sessions will be very important for your examination point of view. Okay, so let's not waste much of the time and let's begin the class. Yes. Now in the chat box, first let me know, am I audible and visible to you properly? Yes. Okay. So thanks for telling me. So let's begin the class. Okay. So your first question in today's session is, yes, good afternoon, Jitendra. Okay, so your first question is that who has written Ruth? Okay, so Ruth is a work and you have to tell me who has written the work Ruth. Is it Milton, Shakespeare, Galsworthy or Wordsworth? Yes, can you tell me in the chat box who has written the work Ruth? Yes, the correct answer to this question is Wordsworth. Okay, so let me explain something to you about the work Ruth. So Ruth, as you know, is a work by William Wordsworth, and it is not only a work, it is a poem by Wordsworth. It is a poem by Wordsworth. Okay, please remember this. So basically, this poem is considered as the most neglected poem of the 1800 edition of Lyrical Ballads. So as you know, Lyrical Ballads were published in three editions. One is 1798, then 1800, then 1802. Okay, so these were the edition, and this was the most neglected poem of the 1800 edition of the Lyrical Ballads. Okay, and here in this poem, Wordsworth shows the contemporary rustic life. Okay, so as you know that these romantic writers were very much fond of the nature, so that's why Wordsworth has given a very beautiful account of the rustic life of that time. Okay, and it surprisingly shows the realistic anatomy of the mental illness and homelessness. Okay, so when you get homelessness, when you feel homeless, when you get mental ill, so it actually gives a realistic account of these kind of themes, okay, in this poem Ruth. Fine. Okay, let's proceed now. Okay, now next question. Shakespeare has written dash historical plays. Okay, so as you heard of Shakespeare, he is the greatest dramatist of the Elizabethan age. So you must be knowing that he has also written historical plays as well. Okay, so now you have to tell me that how many historical plays has been written by Shakespeare. Yes, in the chat box, please answer it. Yes, I'm waiting. So these sessions are very important. So please participate in that because your exams are nearby. So you should be very, get set go वाला आपका एक होना चाहिए, mindset कि जो भी answers है, we have to answer it. जो भी question है, we have to answer it so that it will be, like exam point of view, फिर बहुत ही important होगा. Yes. Okay. So yeah, you are right. So basically, Shakespeare has written 8 historical plays. So you know that his Shakespearean history plays refer to the 10 plays. Okay, so basically he has written 10 plays that cover English history from the 12th to 16th century. So you know that Elizabethan age was the time at that point of time. So from starting from 12th century to 16th century, these historical plays were written. And what was special about these plays, that each of these play was named after a monarch ruling at that point of time. Okay, so like King John, Richard, first, second, third, Henry IV. Okay, so these were the monarchs who were ruling at that point of time. So after their name, the play got the name. After the name, the play got this name. So that's why he has written 8 historical plays. Okay, let's move ahead now. Now, what figure of speech has been used in the following line? So, this was a line. This is the line. Frailty, thy name is woman. You have to tell me which of the following figure of speech has been used in this line. Is it metaphor, personification, apostrophe, or simile? Okay. So, please tell me in the chat box which device has been used in this particular line. Yes. So, frailty, thy name is woman is a quotation from Hamlet. I have already told you this in my previous lecture. What is the meaning of this particular line and why it has been said for Hamlet's mother, Gertrude. It has been said for Hamlet's mother, Gertrude. So, if you want to know, then go back and follow my lectures to get the correct answer to this particular statement. Okay. Yes, so basically the answer is apostrophe. Now, frailty, thy name is woman is a very, as I told you, is a very famous line used by William Shakespeare in his play Hamlet. Now, this line means women are weaker than men. Okay, so women are physically weak and fragile, and that's why he has said so, because his mother, just after 1 month of his death of his husband, she got married to his uncle Claudius. Okay? So this was not acceptable by Hamlet, and that's why he has said this for her, for his mother. Fine? Okay, now let's talk about apostrophe. What is apostrophe? I have already told you apostrophe is a figure of speech which is used when a speaker breaks off from addressing the audience and directs speech to a third party such as the nature. Okay, so it is not something directed towards the second person, it is a third person. Suppose if I am talking to you, I am saying that nature told me this thing. So that is something apostrophe. I am addressing or directing a speech towards the third party. So that kind of a device is known as apostrophe. Okay. So also if we talk about this statement, so here it means women is regarded as more weak physically than men. So it is Shakespeare's, this play Hamlet is one of the longest play with the themes of revenge, corruption, religion and women. Okay. So this was something the themes of this play Hamlet. Fine. Okay. Now let's talk about the other things as well, metaphor, personification and simile. So in my previous lectures, again I have told you about, discussed about these statements in my previous lecture. So you must be knowing what a metaphor, personification, simile. So once again I'll make you revise, because as you know that this is a time of revision. The more you revise, the more you get hang of the theme or a concept. Okay. So basically metaphor is a figure of speech that is used to make a comparison between two things that aren't alike but do have something in common. Okay, so this is a comparison between two unidentical things. दो unidentical things के बीच में हम compare करते हैं जो common नहीं होते हैं at all, but there can be something common between them, and that commonality we actually get compared in that metaphor device. Fine. Also, let's talk about personification. So personification again is a figure of speech in which human characteristics are attributed to an abstract quality, animal or object. If I say the wind is breathing across my face, okay, so wind is not a living thing, but I am attributing the qualities of a living thing to the abstract object, that is wind. So that's why it is the personification. Fine. Next is simile. Again, simile is also comparison between two things using like and as. Okay, so in metaphor and simile, both will compare two unidentical things, but in simile we compare using like and as, whereas in metaphor we don't use like and as to compare the things. If I say he is a shining star. Okay, so this is a metaphor because I am comparing his quality to a shining star, but I'm not using like and as. Whereas in simile, if I say that he is like a shining star, again I'm comparing but using like. So that's why it is a simile. I hope I have made myself clear. Let's move ahead. Okay, the next question is that in which work Milton states that while the still morn went out with sandals grey. ठीक है, अपने किस वर्क में मिल्टन ने ये स्टेटमेंट बोली थी, आपको मुझे बताना है इन द चैट बॉक्स. ओके, सो इज इट एलेग्रो, इल पेंसरोसो, Comus or Lycidas? Out of these all are the works of Milton, and they're very important from the examination point of view. So you should know what has been talked about in these works. Okay, but now you have to tell me in which work did Milton stated that. Okay, in the chat box, can I expect an answer in the chat box? Yes, you got it right. It is Lycidas. So Lycidas is the answer to this question. Now I have already told you that Lycidas is a poem by John Milton written in 1637 as a pastoral elegy. So what is Lycidas? It is a pastoral elegy. I've already told you that what is a pastoral elegy. So basically here Lycidas is dedicated to the memory of Edward King. And who was Edward King? Edward King was a friend of Milton at Cambridge who drowned when the ship sank in the Irish Sea off the coast of Wales. So this, as you know, that elegy is something, a lamentation. Okay, when you just lament the death of someone, you write the elegy. So here it has been written for Milton's friend Edward King, who drowned when his ship sank on the Irish Sea. And in his lamentation or in his memory, Lycidas has been written by Milton. Fine. Now, in this basically Lycidas, in the stanza from basically lines 186 to 189, Milton talks about this Edward King, who was his friend. And also Milton, who has adopted the persona of the uncouth swain or shepherd, singing about the idolized Lycidas. So he has adopted the persona of uncouth swain, and in these paragraphs or stanza he keeps idolizing his friend Edward King. Fine. Okay, now let's talk about some other works of Milton. Let's talk about Comus. So as you know that Comus is basically a masque, okay, and it is presented at Ludlow Castle, and it was a masque which is also a short piece of courtly festive entertainment written by John Milton, arguing for chastity. So here was a maiden who actually preserves her chastity, and this was all about the Comus. Okay, and just remember that the subtitle of this work is the Masque presented at Ludlow Castle. Okay, so a masque masque presented at Ludlow Castle. Fine. Okay, now let's move ahead with other works. Allegro and Il Penseroso. Now these are called as the companion poems. Okay, so just remember that if the question comes that which of the Milton works are known as companion poems, so obviously the answer is Allegro and Il Penseroso. Okay, so just remember they are known as companion poems. Okay, so these are known as companion poems, which was written by John Milton in the pastoral tradition. Okay, it was again written in the pastoral tradition, and this allegro is basically an Italian word which means happy man. Okay, and il penseroso, which is again an Italian means the melancholy man. So this is happy man and this is melancholy man. Okay, so just remember this. Allegro means happy man and Il Penseroso means a melancholy man, and together they depict a similar day's spent in contemplation and thought. Okay, so basically it shows the contemplation, the thought process of the author, and this is the work Il Penseroso and Allegro is all about. Fine. Okay, now let's move ahead. Fine. Next question says that Galsworthy famous play The Silver Box deals with. आपको बताना है मुझे जो Galsworthy का play है The Silver Box, what is the theme of that particular play? Does it deal with the inequality of power, the inequality of justice, the inequality of labor, or the inequality of money division? In the chat box, please let me know the answer to this particular question. Again, Galsworthy is a very important author when it comes to examination point of view. So you must be knowing the works of Galsworthy as well. And one of the work is The Silver Box. And what is the theme of that particular work? You have to tell me in the chat box. Yes. Okay. So the correct answer is the inequality of justice. So you know that Galsworthy is a well-known novelist and a playwright, and much of his work contains a criticism of British society, particularly of the values of the well-to-do professional classes. So basically in his work, he criticizes the British society and the well-to-do professional classes of that particular society. Okay, and The Silver Box, it's one of the such play which deals with such a theme. Okay, it is a very powerful and a bitter play. Why? Because it satirizes. So whenever a satire is there in a work, it has to be bitter. Fine. And this work also is a criticism of the English legal system, in which the distinction is made between the rich and the poor. So basically English legal system को criticize करा गया है. It is a criticism of English legal system, and that's why it is bitter. As I told you, it is a satirization of the English legal system. So it is a bitter and a very powerful play. And it also contains a social satire on unjust social prejudice. जो भी हमारी society को लेकर हमारी धारणा होती है, हमारे thoughts होते हैं, उसको भी Galsworthy ने इस play में satirize किया है. So this was all about The Silver Box. Let's move to the next question. So the next question says that lyric has been the most popular form of poetry during. So this lyric is also, as you know, lyric is a kind of poetry. ठीक है? So किस period में this was the most popular form? You have to tell me in the chat box. Yes. Can I expect an answer in the chat box? Okay. So the correct answer to this question is late 18th century and the complete 19th century. So you can see that in this period, lyric was the most popular form. Now let's talk about this period. So basically the late 18th and the 19th century, basically following immediately after, witnessed some of the greatest development in literature. And why? And not only English language, but also throughout the European continent. And the artistic imagination of the poets found expression most frequently in the form of lyric poetry, which was the dominant form of poetry during that period of time. Okay? So this was at that period of time. So people were actually expressing their thoughts, and these thoughts found the way on the paper by the lyric poetry. And who were the writers? Who were the poets during that time who was famous for writing lyric poetry? Like Cooper, Robert Burns, Oliver Goldsmith wrote lyrics in English, but it was the lyric poetry of Goethe in the German Romantic tradition which popularized the lyric form throughout the Europe. So who popularized it? It was Goethe, who popularized this form in the English literature. Otherwise, other writers for Oliver Goldsmith, William Cooper, Robert Burns, these were all also writing some lyric poetry at that point of time. And this kind of poetry had an impact upon the writers of the Romantic tradition in England as well. And who were the writers of the Romantic tradition? Like Wordsworth, Coleridge, okay, Shelley, Keats. All these are the writers. These are the writers who has a very great impact of lyric poetry. And these writers found found the way of writing lyric poetry in the form of sonnets and lyrics praising nature, which actually established the lyric as a form of most popular form during this period. Fine. Okay, let's move ahead now. Okay, so Desdemona, famous Shakespearean character, belongs to which of the following plays? So Desdemona is a character in Shakespeare play, and in which play it appeared as a character? Is it in King Lear, Othello, Hamlet, or Twelfth Night? You have to tell me in the chat box. In which of the following work of Shakespeare Desdemona was a character? Okay, so the answer is Othello. So in Othello, Shakespeare, Desdemona was a character. So basically, the tragedy of Othello, which is actually the subtitle "The Moor of Venice," is a tragedy written by William Shakespeare that you all know. Fine. Also remember the story which revolves around Othello, who was a Moorish military commander who is serving as a general of the Venetian army. Okay? And Iago, there was one more character, Iago. Who was Iago? So Iago was also an Othello's malicious ensign, who maliciously strokes his master's jealousy about his wife Desdemona's supposed affair. Okay? So he thought, he actually planted a seed of jealousy in Othello's mind that his wife Desdemona is having an affair. Thus, we understand that the Desdemona's who was Othello's wife, is a character in Shakespeare Othello. Fine. Okay. Also remember that Iago, who poisons Othello's mind towards Desdemona by placing her handkerchief among Cassio's possessions. ठीक है, तो उसने उसका handkerchief रख दिया Cassio's के possession में, just to make Othello believe that yes, she is having an affair with Cassino. And he successfully successfully convinces Othello that Desdemona is having an illicit relationship with Cassino. So as a result, Othello murders Desdemona in a fit of rage by what he do? By smothering her with a pillow. Okay, and her maid Emilia, who is Iago's wife, comforts her in her final moment. So this was all the story Othello about. So you should read this play by looking at the different sources on the net. So this, because as you know, this is a very important play as when it comes to UGC net. Okay, let's move ahead. Now Galsworthy loyalties is written in the form of what? So जो Galsworthy का work है loyalties, it is written in which form? Is it written in short story, novel, essay, or play? You have to tell me the correct answer in the chat box. In which form does loyalties has been written? So yes, the correct answer is play. So basically, Loyalties is a realistic play written by John Galsworthy. Okay, and the title refers to the state of being loyal or faithful to commitments or obligations. ठीक है, so आप अगर कोई commitment करते हो, कोई आपकी duty होती है, so how faithful you are towards that duty or commitment. This was the main theme of this particular play, Loyalties. Okay, and here in this play, Galsworthy described it as the only play of him which was able to say that through which he was able to say that when he finished it, no manager will refuse this. Okay, so he has written in such a great manner that he was very confident enough that nobody will going to refuse my play, Loyalties. Okay, and in this play, he addresses the theme of a powerful social conventions along with the hypocrisy that supports them. So social conventions को उसने criticize करा था. Okay, social, yeah. Okay, so he has actually basically addresses the theme of power of social conventions along with the hypocrisy that support them. So this was all about the play, this loyalties. Fine. Okay, let's move ahead now. Wordsworth has expressed his views on transmigration of the soul in his poem. ठीक है, तो किस poem में उसने अपना ये the theme of transmigration has been expressed? Is it Prelude, Ode to Duty, Ecclesiastical Sketches, or Ode on the Intimidations of Immorality? So you have to tell me in the chat box out of which these options, which is the correct one. Okay, so the answer to this question is Ode to the intimations of immortality. Okay, so you should first know what is transmigration. So can you tell me in the chat box what do you understand by the word transmigration? Okay, so basically transmigration refers to the movement of a soul into another body after death. As you know, you are living through, there's a soul inside you. But as you will die, your soul will move from your body to someone else's body. So this process is known as transmigration. And in this poem, Ode on the Intimations of Immorality, Wordsworth expressed his views on the transmigration of the soul. Okay, and this poem showed the narrator views of the natural world. So as you know, Wordsworth was a natural writer, he was a romantic writer, he was very close to the nature. So what were his views towards that particular nature? So he has expressed those views in this particular work. And he stated that as a child, nature appeared mystical and spiritual to him. But as he grew older, all the beauties and glories faded away. And instead of enjoying the pleasure of nature, the speaker, who is Wordsworth, is sad by the delightful view and the creatures around him. Okay, but as gradually time passes, his mind changes and he begins to cherish the beauty around him, because he realizes at that point of time that he was wrong to, it is actually wrong to be said when the earth itself is admiring the scenes and children are delighted. So he goes back and forth in the past and present throughout the poem, and he says that as an infant we have a strong connection, memories of heaven. This was something very idea of the most of the poems of metaphysical age as well, because when you are born you are very close to the heaven because you have just arrived on this earth. But as you grow older, like 10 years and 12, 15, 20, you move away from your memories of heaven, so you become far away from the your connection to heaven. So that's why he said that when you are young, when you are infant, you are very much close to the very much connected and close to the memories of heaven. Okay, and he also says that as soon as we grow up, we lose all our relationship with heaven. Okay. Okay. Now, instead, everything of the earth conspires to actually make us, make us forget the place where we all belong. So, because we see a lot of things around us, we become so much engaged in the worldly pleasure that we forget our connection to heaven. And basically, this poem shows the speaker transformation from childhood to adulthood in a very relatable way, because we can also relate to his experiences, because we have at some point of time in our life we have experienced the same thing. Fine. Okay, this was all about Ode on the Intimations of Immorality. Just remember, in this work Wordsworth has talked about the theme of transmigration. Fine. Okay, let's move ahead. Okay, now which form of poetry is the poem The Solitary Reaper? So ये जो Solitary Reaper poem है, ये कौन सा type की poetry है? Is it ode? Is it lyric? Is it ballad or is it elegy? We have already talked about lyric, so we'll be also talking about other things as well. But before that, you should tell me The Solitary Reaper is which form of poetry? In the chat box. Okay, so the correct answer is The Solitary Reaper is a lyric. Okay, so as I already told you, you must have been knowing it as well. The Solitary Reaper is a lyric poem by Wordsworth. ठीक है, ये Wordsworth ने poem लिखी थी Solitary Reaper, and it is one of the most well-known poems and was one of the most popular works in the post lyrical ballad period. Okay, so lyrical ballad got published in 1798, and after that other poems keep on adding to this particular edition, but the Solitary Reaper is one of the most popular poem of the first edition of the lyrical ballad. Fine. Okay, now the poem, what is the poem all about? So the poem actually succeeds in expressing the emotions recollected in tranquility. As you know, this was there's a reaper, a Scottish reaper who keeps on reaping, you know, and she keeps on singing some song. So she was collecting some emotions. So emotion that actually shows the Wordsworth principle of emotions collected in tranquility. Okay, that Wordsworth says that it is like poetry is very close to heart. So when you are alone, you are very much connected towards your inner self. So you are able to collect your emotion better way at that state. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about lyric. So as I already told you that lyric is a poem, it's a type of poetry in which the poet expresses personal emotions or feelings typically spoken in the first person narrational voice. ठीक है, तो आप जब अपने अंदर के feelings, emotions को express करते हो first person पे, that is a kind of a lyric. ठीक है, as I told you, late 18th and full 19th century poets found their expressions through these lyric. Okay, and thus this Solitary Reaper can be classified as a lyric because in this poem Wordsworth manifests the fluid expressive beauty of music, and that leads to the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So you see that emotion recollecting tranquility, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, all these expressions of Wordsworth has been used completely in this poem, The Solitary Reaper. Also remember that in this poem, Wordsworth tells us about a girl who was a Highland maiden, and what she was doing, she was working alone in a field, and while working, she sings a mournful tune in a very sad voice, which actually enthralls the poet, and he tells the listeners to actually either listen silently or move on without disturbing the song, because song was so catching that Wordsworth didn't want her to stop singing. And the lone harvester represents the often ignored beauty of nature, because people are attracted towards the song, maybe to the nature, not to the particular maiden what she is doing. So that's why as we move in nature, we ignore some things of nature. So this ignored part was a Solitary Reaper. So she was a representation of the ignored beauty of nature. Fine. Okay, let's move ahead now. William Shakespeare died on. So you have to tell me out of these 4 dates in which William Shakespeare died. Yes. Okay, so the correct answer is April 23rd, 1616. So William Shakespeare, as you know, was an English playwright, poet and actor, and he is widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language and the world's greatest dramatist. Okay? Also, he is often referred to as the Bard of Avon and is frequently called the England's national poet. Okay? So इसको Bard of Avon ही बोला जाता है. And he was also England's one of the greatest poets, dramatist, actor, everything. So which basically that's why Shakespeare greatness was so much that an age has been synonymous to his name. So Shakespearean age, or the age of Shakespeare, so the age fully has been named after Shakespeare, because Shakespeare is one of the most or the greatest author of the Elizabethan age and holds a very good position in England's or in British literature. Okay? Let's move ahead. By what age had Milton become totally blind? So you have to tell me out of the 4 options, the ages are given. Is it 34 years, 46 years, 44 years or 56 years? इसमें किस age में, okay, he became totally blind? This you must be knowing because it is the easy one. And after becoming blind, he actually started writing Paradise Lost. So you must be knowing that. And he has also written on his blindness. So in this poem he actually described his state of blindness. So you have to tell me in which age he became completely blind. Okay, so it was, answer is 44 age. So as you know that Milton lost his eyesight at the age of 44 due to excessive writing that he had to do as a government servant. Okay, so he was working for the government as well at that point of time, and he was so much engaged in this work that actually it became strenuous to his eyes and he lost his eyesight. And he was completely blind and was dependent on others for his everyday tasks. So it was not something slight blind, he was completely blind in that of time. But by that time he had not started writing the epic poem, which was the basically the sole ambition in his life. Because what was the ambition of Milton's life? That मुझे अपनी life में कुछ ऐसा लिखना है that coming ages में सब मुझे याद रखे. And that's why he started writing Paradise Lost. But before that, when he was blind, see the courage, he was blind but still he wanted to write a greatest epic of all time, and yes, he was right to write the greatest epic. Fine. And in spite of all this, Paradise Lost remained for all us to see the triumphant victory of man over his adversities. Okay, so Paradise Lost में भी same theme follow हुआ था कि despite all the adversities you face in life, you should be always be looking forward to getting triumphant in these adversities. ठीक है? Let's move ahead. What kind of plays did Galsworthy write? So out of these four options, किस type के play Galsworthy लिखता था? In the chat box. किस type के play Galsworthy लिखता था? Can you tell me in the chat box? Okay. So Galsworthy, as I have already told you, that he is famous for writing problem plays. Okay? And what is a problem play? So problem play basically is a term used to describe those plays which deal with a social issue and makes the audience think about a problem which plagues society and how it may be solved. ठीक है? So एक social problem को वो एक लेता है अपने play में and he discusses about the problem and gives a solution to that particular problem. So that's why he is famous for writing problem plays. And basically this John Galsworthy is a brilliant proponent of a genre of problem plays. For example, he has written Justice. So as I already told you, Justice is a problem play which deals with the issues related to the prison administration and solitary confinement in England. Okay? And the play, one of his play like Skin Game also discusses the problem of war. So as you can see that these plays discuss some problem and he discusses about solution to that particular problem. Okay, let's move ahead. Who said that in Paradise Lost book 1 Milton belongs to a devil's party without knowing it? Okay, out of these four options, who said that this about Milton? Can you tell me in the chat box? Can you let me know in the chat box which is the correct answer to this particular question? Okay, so the correct answer to this question is William Blake. So it was William Blake who observed that Milton belonged to the devil's party without knowing it. Okay? And this remark implies that Milton subconsciously glorified Satan, especially in book 1 of Paradise Lost. Okay? And this point of view is typical of the romantic spirit and it makes Satan the real hero of Paradise Lost. Fine? Also, the romantics admires the indomitable courage and love of freedom, both of which Satan shows in plenty of book 1 of Paradise Lost. And however, one cannot admire these qualities as good in themselves, ignoring the moral values connected with them in the context of this poem. Fine. So from all these statements, it is clear that Milton belongs to the devil's party without knowing it. So he didn't do it consciously, But when the Paradise Lost was written, it was made out by the reader that unknowingly Milton actually belonged to a devil's party. He was supporting Satan in that over God. Fine, because he was facing the same condition in his personal life as well. Okay. Fine. Let's move ahead. Which of the following does not belong to Galsworthy three trilogies? So Galsworthy ने 3 trilogies लिखी थी. Out of these things, which does not belong to these trilogies, you have to tell me that. Tell and fast in the chat box. I'm waiting. Yes. So the correct answer is The Man of Property. Now Galsworthy masterpiece in the trilogy entitled that is a Forsyte Saga. So Galsworthy ने बहुत important अपना play लिखा था that is Forsyte Saga. ठीक है, ये आपको पता होना चाहिए, मैंने आपको बता भी रखा है in my previous lecture that Forsyte Saga is one of the most important play of Galsworthy and it consists of 3 novels and 2 interludes. Okay, so क्या था इसमें 3 novels plus 2 interludes. 3 novels and 2 interludes. मैंने आपको novels के नाम भी बताए हैं, ठीक है. You must be remembering the name as well. One of is The Man of Property, ठीक है. दूसरा था In Chancery, then Too Late, Awakening, Indian Summer of the Forsyte. So these were some of the works of the Forsyte Saga, and it is also followed by this Forsyte Saga is followed by the Modern Comedy, which is a sequel to Forsyte Saga, and also a trilogy consisting of 3 novels and 2 interludes. So this Modern Comedy is also a trilogy which consists of 3 novels and 2 interludes. And what were these novels in the Modern Comedy? I've told you in my previous lecture, it is White Monkey, The Silver Spoon and The Swan Song, and the 2 interludes were the A Silent Wooing and The Passers By. Okay, so these were some of the works of Galsworthy, and this trilogy called as The End of the Chapter was also written at a later period, and it again consists of 3 novels. ठीक है, कौन-कौन सी novel थी? Can anybody tell me in the chat box? कौन-कौन सी novel थी? Yes, can you tell me in the chat box? Okay, so basically the novels were that Made in Waiting, Flowering Wilderness, and Over the River. So these were some of the novels. So you should remember it, search in the internet, make notes about Galsworthy. These are the only important works of Galsworthy. Please get a hang of it because these are very important from the examination point of view. Okay? So let's move ahead now. Which female author was a fierce critic of Galsworthy? Okay, so you have to tell me which female author criticized Galsworthy. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is Virginia Woolf. So Virginia Woolf is a female author who actually criticized Galsworthy, and she is one of the most important modernist writers. So just remember, she belongs to the modern age. अगर आपने ब्रिटिश हिस्ट्री पढ़ी होगी तो ब्रिटिश हिस्ट्री में जब आप मॉडर्न एज पढ़ते हो तो वर्जीनिया वुल्फ का जिक्र जरूर आता है, and you'll read about it. So just remember that Virginia Woolf belonged to the modern age, and she was a pioneer in the use of the stream of consciousness as a narrative device. So कौन सा वो device use करती थी? Stream of consciousness. She uses stream of consciousness. And if you must be knowing that what is stream of consciousness, when you just plant, when you just plant the reader in the mind of the character, the character ka inner chaos, the thought process, everything is very much evident to the reader. So this kind of technique is known as stream of consciousness. And both Virginia Woolf and one more writer, English writer, D.H. Lawrence, criticized John Galsworthy for his materialism. He emphasized on property, money and physical objects that they saw as superficial and limited. So this was something criticized. Female writer पूछे तो Virginia Woolf है, male writer पूछे तो D.H. Lawrence है, ठीक है? So both of them criticized Galsworthy for his materialism. ठीक है? Okay. Also, Virginia Woolf was a famous female novelist, and she is remembered as one of the boldest modernist classic writers who actually raised the question of why women cannot be independent. Okay, the room of one's own. So in that she raised the question that why women can't be independent. Okay, and also Jane Austen. Talking about Jane Austen. Jane Austen was also a very popular novelist who wrote 6 full-length novels, and she belonged to the Romantic age. Next is J.K. Rowling. So J.K. Rowling is a British writer popular for her Harry Potter series. You must have watched it and loved it as well. And next is Charlotte Bronte. So Charlotte Bronte was a novelist and eldest among the Bronte sisters. Okay? Charlotte, Emily and Anne, these were the 3 sisters which was known by the combined name Bronte sisters, and Charlotte Bronte was the youngest of them all, and she belonged to the Victorian age. Fine. Gulab, that will be handled by sir. I am basically responsible for taking the English paper 2 UGC net. So keep following the channel and take subscription of app. You will be getting the theory sessions as well of paper 2 education. Okay. Let's move ahead now. The main theme of Shakespearean sonnets is, so as you know that Shakespeare had written not only dramas, he has written sonnets as well. So if you have read those sonnets in your UG or PG, so you have to tell me out from those readings, what is the main theme of Shakespearean sonnet? Is it love, hatred, intrigue or envy? Okay? You have to tell me in the chat box out of these 4 options which is the correct one. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is love. Okay, so basically the sonnets as a form, especially as developed by Petrarch, was often associated with the theme of love. So Petrarch was an Italian writer who actually brought the sonnets from Italy to England, and the main theme of Petrarch sonnets were also love. So same goes with Shakespeare as well. Okay, and Shakespeare is no exception to this. Just remember that. And majority of the sonnets have love as the theme. So this theme has been handled in different ways. So some of the sonnets of Shakespeare praise the beloved directly and others indirectly. So it is not always directed to a lover. Some praise directly and some indirectly. Also, some suggest that love can bring joy, and even when the narrator is surrounded by misfortune. So आपको लगता है ना कि when you are surrounded by misfortune, आपके साथ हर चीज गलत हो रही है, बुरी हो रही है, but somebody gives you a helping hand or a loving hand, or somebody keeps a loving hand on your head, you feel everything is good. So this was something theme of Shakespearean sonnet as well. And others sonnet of Shakespeare emphasize that true love endures through ages and involves a deep spiritual connection rather than just superficial physical attraction. ठीक है, so आपका spiritual होता है, that is something called as platonic love, जो एक तो होता है bodily connection, physical attraction, that is earthly love, and next is platonic love, which is spiritual love. So that was also a theme of Shakespeare sonnets. And the love poems are mainly addressed to a young man, but some of them are also addressed to a woman, which is also who is known as dark lady. Okay, एक उसका friend था young man, and other one is the lady. Okay, is this clear? So, and Shakespeare has written 154 sonnets. Just remember that. Yes. Any questions you have, you can post in the chat box. I'll be answering those questions. If no, let's end this session because we are done with the most of the questions, and I have brought again some most important previous year's question. You should get the concepts right. Not only the answer, you should know the theory of the answer, but also go with the options as well, because sometimes what happens, these options are favorite of UGC net exam setters. So they just keep on repeating this concept. So if you know the concept of the options as well, you are good to go with the questions in the examination. Okay, so these series will be continued on a daily basis, and from 6th of January I'll be bringing theory classes as well. So we at 10:15 a.m. in the morning we'll be doing some theory, which is very important from the UGC net point of view, and in my 1 p.m. session I will be solving, or I will be bringing up with the questions of that particular theory which we have learned in the 10:15 a.m. session, and we'll be solving the previous year's question. So this will be our agenda, theory question, theory question. So आपको सिर्फ theory ही नहीं पढ़ना होगा, आप question भी समझ में आएंगे कि how to apply that theory in that particular question. Okay, so please stay tuned to this channel. Like, subscribe, comment and share with your friends, because this is how you will be helping your friends as well to get prepared for this coming UGC net examination. Okay, so I'll not waste much of the time. So let's just study, sleep well, eat well, and let's just be focused to this particular examination, and hope you all will be a JRF soon. Okay, so let's say bye bye to everyone, and take care.